a moment of silence for those who lost their lives in the 9/11 attacks and those who lost it trying to save as many people as they could.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for 2006's World Trade Center, directed by Oliver Stone, the second of two 9/11 movies that were released in 2006. This is technically premiering on Monday, but what is September 15th, or is it September 16th? Okay, hold on. September 16th, but this was recorded on September 11th. Yeah, so this one, the plot of this one, whereas one of them is about one of the flights, this one is about the attacks on the World Trade Center, where after the terrorist attack of the World Trade Center, the building collapses over the rescue team from the Port Authority Police Department. Will Jimeno and his Sergeant John McLaughlin are found alive and trapped under the wreckage while the rescue teams fight to save them. Yeah. So how was this made? Well, since this one was about the attacks on the World Trade Center, the craziest thing is, Oliver Stone, the director, was accused by a lot of American newspapers of examining the 9/11 theories that, because Stone was known for, when as a filmmaker, known for expanding various conspiracy theories that, like, where they did JFK with the Kennedy assassination, but Stone stated that they don't explore conspiracy theories here at all. And he, the producers, and the real officers the movie's based on, and say the film is a simple dedication to their heroism and the sadness of the day with little to no political themes. And they also accuse it of not providing a real portrayal of the character motives of rescuing Dave, such as Dave Campbell and Chuck Sorokia. They did not participate in making the film, though, and felt the roles of being the first rescuers to reach the trapped men did not really receive enough screen time. And there are certain details that were altered, like the film does depict McLaughlin's team being completely oblivious to the crash in the South Tower, even though they entered the concourse before the United Airlines Flight 175 struck, and though Will Jimeno reality clarified that they were aware of the second impact and occurred when they were en route to the complex. But when it comes to filming the film was shot between October 2005 and 2006, and then would go on to be released when it was done being filmed. It would go on to be released to the public by Paramount Pictures in the United States on August 9, 2006. When it came to the reactions, it got positive reviews from critics, but it got more mixed reactions from audiences. And it grossed $163 million worldwide. As for my reaction, sorry about that, guys. I know audiences are a little mixed on this movie, but in all honesty, I've personally loved, one of the few who loves it. And I found it for a while to be one of Cage's last great performances for quite a bit, because we all know after this, his career kind of went on a bit of a decline with some bad movies like the Ghost Rider films, the Wicker Man remake that came out literally a month after this. Some other flops like Next or Knowing or Drive Angry or Season of the Witch. His career kind of went downhill for a bit after this movie. So this was one of his last great performances for a while. But his career started to come back on track. What I like about this movie is, I like the scenes between Cage and Pina when they're crushed under the tower rubble. And I do like Cage's performance and character in this movie too, and I also love Michael Pina's performance and character in this movie too. So I did like the scenes together where they both try to have hope of being rescued, and they warn each other not to give up so quick when they're crushed under the rubble. And I did love their scenes together when they were on screen together. It's an impressive, well-executed film. It's got some excellent acting. It's got some good directing, some good editing. Like, it definitely does well remind you of the horrors that happened that day. Like, it's a film about heroes, about friendships, it's about having hope, it's about triumphs. Like, there's points in a movie that are pretty bleak and are known to make the viewer cry, but there's you do get some decent moments at some points, and there's some positivity throughout the movie, even if it's it was pretty much filmed on a day where there was crisis and horror surrounding a very dire situation that day. Like, the horror does exist though, but it's not over dramatic, it's not overplayed, because it's not the main part of the film. Like, the film is based on the lives of these two trapped survivors that don't recall what happened to them on that day. Like, some scenes where they're telling about their past or their childhoods, or they try to stay alive long enough to be rescued, even if it may more kind of just just trying to stay long enough to see if they get rescued or get found any way they can. Some do think that this didn't really accurately depict 9/11, and complain about Oliver Stone not portraying the events right or milked for emotion, but I disagree with that. I really like when Michael Pena and Nicolas Cage, how they portrayed these two officers, Lameno and McLaughlin. I thought they played their characters well. They definitely capture the horror these characters are going through. The movie doesn't really show the towers falling down, but it doesn't mention anything about why or what motivated anyone. Its focus is on this small group of police officers who are risking their lives to save others in the light of the tragedy, and these two actors portray one of the best dramatic duo performances of the 2000s. I think the two actors are very credible here. It's definitely another one of Pina's best performances, and also not only is it about the two cops, it's also tells about the cops' wives who wait for word on their husbands if they survive. Megan Gyllenhaal, who was the pregnant wife of the rookie Jimeno, of course, and Maria Bello also does a not bad performance as the wife of McLaughlin, who tries to keep her family calm and try not to believe the worst, and doesn't want to believe the worst if it does happen. So how does our movie start off? Well, we start off on the day this all happened, September 11, 2001, where our Port Authority police officers, John McLaughlin and Will Jimeno, they're patrolling the Port Authority bus terminal at the Midtown Manhattan, and they see this plane fly dangerously low overhead. Then the police officers immediately go back to the station, and they get a glimpse of the TV and find that the North Tower of the World Trade Center got hit by a plane. And so McLaughlin assists many of the officers to assist in an evacuation attempt of the undamaged South Tower for now. So they board this Commandeer Transit Authority bus, and then when they're on the bus, they hear reports that the South Tower just got hit, and their cell phones are out of service, and there's no subplots here. There's no distracting romances. There's no Hollywood inventions in the film. There's no complicated plot twists, subliminal messages, or indictments. You never show the planes impacting the Twin Towers, or just a focus on those behind the attacks. United 93, the other one that released the same year as this, United 93, does that one. There's the footage of political figures is kept to a brief minimum right there. There's brief appearances from some, but that's about it. I thought Oliver Stone did a pretty not bad job, staying clear of like left-wing thoughts. Like when it comes to bringing personal thoughts into the movie, the supporting cast was pretty good as well. Like you got Nikki Cat, Jay Hernandez, Frank Wiley, Stephen Dorff, Patty D. Arbanville, Monica Sunshine in this film too. They also do pretty decent job in their performances. And one thing the film does really well is that it doesn't over dramatize the events. Like it's captivating, it's gut wrenching, but not a point where the drama was over exaggerated. It actually does seem real. Like they actually portray all the horrors that happened the day of these attacks very well. And all the just about all the performances are great. Like I don't really see much bad performances here. The actors do good at actually making you feel like you're there. The portrayal of the firemen is very real and desperate as they're trying to save all these people as well. Here, like Stone does recapture many of the moments that happened that day into many people's minds. Like we got the paper-filled air, the streets, and the ash-covered survivors, the rescue workers, the exhausted rescuers. Like they're all here. They're handled with class and dignity very well. So when our characters do arrive at the site of the World Trade Center, they see the extended disaster and see one of the first victims actually jump out of the towers to certain death. So Jimeno drops off their police equipment. Five pretty much World Trade Center officers then have to go get safety equipment. They enter the concourse between the towers, and so Cage then immediately rallies up his officers that they're going to evacuate the place, and calls for whoever's going to come with him to step forward. So Jimeno, Dominic, and Antonio, they step forward with him. And then, of course, an officer named Chris also appears to inform of other events. And the attack on the Pentagon, the second planes then hit the South Tower. The group does not accept this, though. As the men are about to enter the North Tower, buildings begin to rumble. McLaughlin realizes that the South Tower is collapsing on them. And their only chance of survival is to pretty much run to the service elevator shaft. And there are some that find Cage's delivery of run to the elevator shaft a little hammy, but honestly, I thought the line was delivered actually well. Well, here you kind of feel the desperation to get to safety. You kind of feel the desperation with the way he delivers the line so they all can get to safety. And so Chris traps though does not have time to get up, and Rodriguez is unable to get to the shaft in time though. But McLaughlin, Jimeno, and Pizzillo manage to escape. The huge amounts of dust and rubble flying down from the South Tower. Then, of course, the rubble continues to crush the elevator shaft. And then, sadly, though, they get trapped. So you do have some claustrophobic sequences where you have the scenes with McLaughlin's wife, Donna, a.k.a. Maria Bell's character, and Jimeno's spouse, Allison, who's Maggie Gyllenhaal's character. These parts really do well in tugging at the heartstrings because the wives are helpless as the husbands, and, no one seems to know if they're, living or dead. And they did a pretty believable job, showing what these two officers are really going through. The start of the movie, you're meeting the characters, there's no background music, so it does feel like a documentary reality TV. And it brings home that this is definitely a true story. It definitely did happen. The music doesn't actually start till the main characters get trapped, and it's a pretty good story of incredible people here. It's very heartfelt, it's wonderful. You have a focus on a few characters that bring in the emotions, and that it pretty much allows the mind of the viewer to magnify for all the souls that died that day. And as it's stated at the end, it's not a story of what evil can do, but it's of the bravery, courage, and love that exists in people, as in the officers who went into that building and risked their lives to get as many survivors as they could out of there. It's definitely life-affirming positive, but it's still tragically sad. It still tells you that this was a very tragic day that happened. But it does offer you a bit of hope for the characters. The sound is incorporated well into the film. And when the team's in the World Trade Center where it comes down, the sound effects actually really probably win where they are. And the second tower is hit, and you hear the boom at the inside, and you definitely feel it. And you definitely feel it. When these guys are trapped under the rubble, when the first tower falls, the second one comes down, you feel like you're trapped under that rubble with them. Right there. So I like how Oliver Stone did the whole scenes of the towers falling. You don't really see them falling per se. You actually see them inside when the towers are starting to fall. And screenwriter of the film, Andrea Berloff, does well in crafting dialogue and story pacing. It keeps the audience wrapped with the tension for 2 hours. And the time spent ping-ponging back and forth between the two talking heads of officers John McLaughlin and Will Jimeno, they're jammed beneath multiple floors and collapsed rubble. right there, and like you're not just telling a true human story. Like they're actually showing the viewer like the gut level fear, the trepidation of the first responders. That still had the courage to enter those towers, and like you have it's also like a film that kind of shoots the radical elements and on both sides of the spectrum. And like when you're watching Nick Cage and Michael Pena like reminiscing about their families and all their like past time about all their past lives and stuff and who they would miss if they don't survive, like that was a really well acted bit right there. I really love that scene right there. You have perfect scenes of panic, chaos, emotional desperation. They're very well reenacted. Like it shines on what it definitely shines on what some of these actors are good at. They like in this movie they portray the desolation and near hopelessness well. Like, and just when they're about to have begun the evacuation attempt, like Cage and the policemen that go with him, they're caught in the collapse and they get trapped. And only Cage and Pena's characters survive, the rest don't. And of course, like Maggie Gyllenhaal's character is pretty much the one responsible for the controlled hysteria. And then of course when the debris subsides, like Pazulo does realize like when they're trapped that he can't free himself, and he does manage to move nearer to Jimeno, who along with McLaughlin, they're pinned into the rubble and they sadly cannot move. So Pazulo tries, but he fails to shift the debris covering Jimeno's legs and is told by McLaughlin like not to leave. So Pazulo becomes pretty optimistic that they're going to live, but then the rumble begins again, and the North Tower starts to collapse as well. Although Jimeno and McLaughlin are not further harmed, like Pazulo sadly though gets fatally wounded, but he tries to fire a gun through a gap in the rubble to try to alert rescuers to position, and then he dies right there. So the rest of the movie, it's mostly like Cage and Pena and under that rubble. Like the most emotional part of the movie is definitely the footage of the day, that happened, like when they arrive and they're like seeing the whole towers like starting to collapse, like one of them falling out of the towers. Like that's a pretty well done horrific moment right there. So despite the horrific subject matter of the film, it does effectively illustrate this characteristics of human beings that lays the like the motives of the perpetrators of the attack, and like how sometimes human beings can have the ability to band together to surmount difficulties, no matter how horrendous, and come out on top and like ready to move on against all odds. Like Jimeno and McLovin, they spend most of the film under the rubble, like they're in pain, but they're exchanging personal information. McLovin is like anxious to keep Jimeno from falling asleep, and Jimeno realizes that by stringing around a metal bar above his body, he can make a noise that rescuers might hear. And then, so two United States Marines, like named Dave Carnes and Marine Sergeant Thomas, they're searching for survivors in the rubble of the now destroyed World Trade Center. They hear it and they find the men. They're calling for help to dig them out. Slow. Jimeno is rescued at first. Jimeno does get rescued first, but it takes a few hours to rescue McLaughlin. But then eventually McLaughlin gets lifted out of the debris and he's barely alive. Then they both get reunited with their distraught families at the hospital. Like, right there, like, yeah, pretty much most of the film, like, it's either, when it focuses either on the two officers that are under the rubble or their families just waiting to see if they get, like, survive. Like, you do see some more other subplots where Michael Pena's character is, like, hoping to have a baby. And then Gyllenhaal pretty much goes to this pharmacy and the family goes with her. Then she returns home and, like, Pena's other daughter, he has this wonder if they found daddy, and Gyllenhaal just doesn't really have an answer that much. And then one of Cage's children is trying to go out and find him, but Maria Bell's character is kind of against it, but then she eventually relents and pretty much drives with the officer that's pretty much keeping them company till they know for certain to go find him. And then of course, then when Cage gets rescued, like the news gets delivered to them, but since it takes like a few hours, there's a bit of an error once they get to the hospital. But eventually, he does get rescued, and then they get reunited with their families at the hospital. And then both men are undergoing medical treatment and extensive surgeries. McLaughlin is placed in this induced coma. Then after you see that shot of them in the hospital, you do see like pretty much what happens the next day. Like Like, the subway train is empty, there's little people there, they're obviously still reeling from the effects that happened the day before. And then he cut to like 2003, where Jimeno and McLaughlin are both retired from duty, and they're at a barbecue with their families. And like, then the epilogue reveals in a text that both men were 2 out of 20, only 20 people that got found alive at Ground Zero. And those two were numbers 18 and 19. There. And it's pretty much what it tells you in the text. And then, of course, the character David Carnes re-enlisted in the Marines, and he served 2 hours in the Iraq War. And then you get a bit of a dedication. And then you kind of get a bit of a dedication text to all the victims. And then after the dedication text, that's where the movie ends. That's how World Trade Center ends. So yeah, all in all, it may be mixed reactions from some audiences, but I personally, I kind of enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy the film. Do I rewatch it a lot? No, because it's definitely not an easy film to rewatch. But I thought it did pretty decent job portraying the events of the World Trade Center attacks, and it portrayed like the characters pretty well and stuff. But I thought it didn't do too bad. Does the movie have bad qualities? Yeah, sure, it does. It does get a little political for a moment, and the movie does it for a bit long. And then, of course, there's one part where Shan's character says, like, something about, like, avenge line and stuff, or the victims, when the victims' families get some answers, or better, like, some closure. Like, the questions don't really get answered there. Though, and some of the scenes where the main characters spend much of the movie nerds, and they do get a little tedious at times, but you know the ultimate outcome of the story, and since it's based on actual accounts, like when you have the harrowing arrival, the disaster site is very horrifying, and the amazingly filled destruction of the towers, like for the brief bit you do see the towers collapsing, the cops experience does kind of become a little less compelling during those moments though, but it doesn't bother me that much. It's kind of supposed to be more about like the cops' perspective when they were inside the building evacuating as many people as they could. So other than those like nitpicks, I enjoy World Trade Center, and I do think it is worth buying. In the end, guys, World Trade Center is a beautifully well done film that I think is worth buying for those who want to remember those that risked their lives to save as many as they could from the World Trade Center attacks. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of World Trade Center. If we're anything like World Trade Center, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you remember all the 9/11 attacks and want a film that honors those that risked their lives and helped to save as many from the towers as they could, then totally watch it by World Trade Center for your collection. If we're anything like rank World Trade Center, I'm going to give World Trade Center an 8 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for World Trade Center. That's one of 2 9/11 based attack films I've reviewed. Now I gotta review the other one, United 93, which will be premiering the next day. Recorded around the same, recorded review around the same time, but it's just going to premiere next week, much like what the World Trade Center review did around the time these were recorded. Yeah, that's the next watch. And until then, guys, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.